The 2025 season has finally come to an end, and an unfortunate one at that, as our Cincinnati Reds lose out on Game 164, and it'll be the Philadelphia Phillies who move on to the National League wildcard game to take on the San Francisco Giants. Overall, a very fun season, though, for our Reds team. J.P. Crawford now on the Reds. Taylor Walls is still the man at shortstop. Brian Anderson broke out at the plate this season. DLC didn't actually fall off a cliff like it looked like he did early in the season. We finally found a good young starter to add to our rotation in Big Stu. Adrian Merced looks like a legit center fielder. Lots to be excited about with the Reds going forward, so let's just hop straight into the offseason here, or the recap rather. Starting things off at the standings around the league in the National League East, you had the Braves win that division with 87 wins. Phillies were only 1.5 games back, while the Mets were exactly 500. In the Central, you've got the Cubs taking that division. We had 86 wins, and the the Brewers had 85. The Cardinals, who have won multiple World Series in this universe, have completely fallen off this season, only went 76 and 86, while in the NL West, of course, it's the Dodgers and then the Giants behind them. Padres and Rockies are both above 500 as well, but they're in division with the Dodgers and the Giants, so kind of sucks to be them. AL East, you get the Blue Jays, who completely ran away with that division. Red Sox, a measly 82 and 80, 24 games back in second place. In the AL Central, you've got the Guardians, who won 94 games, and then it was the Tigers and the White Sox, who both had winning seasons behind them. While in the West, it's the Astros, the Angels, and the Rangers all win 90-plus games. Wild card was easily that division. So if you take a look at the playoff bracket, that's what it looks like before anything happens. We will check back in with this later on in the video. So as far as the stats with the Cincinnati Reds go, J.P. Crawford was the best bat on the team, one of the best bats in Major League Baseball this season in general, a 988 OPS with 29 home runs for John Power Crawford. That is a career high for him. It has gone up every single year for him in this series. First with Seattle, and now here in Cincinnati. A 102 walks to 68 Ks on the season for J.P. Crawford, which is just an absurd rate there. I mean, how can you even explain that? A 429 on-base percentage for J.P. Crawford. Then we've got Johnny Fagan, who was a decent contact bat for us this season. Just absolutely no slugging, though. And if he's going to be a first base DH type for us, he needs to start slugging more, whether that's hitting more doubles, whether it's developing more power. It doesn't matter. I just need to see some more extra base hits from this man. Tyler Stevenson, OPS ended up below 800. Still a solid season overall, though, for a catcher. Taylor Walls also slumped a bit at the plate down the stretch, but still had an 802 OPS, 30 doubles, 38 stolen bases. Just continues to improve his ratings at the plate, all while still being an elite shortstop for us. Adrian Merced, pretty close to the ideal season you can expect from him, I would say. Maybe a little bit more slugging can be expected, but overall still very solid. 353 OBP and 47 swiped bags. I like him hitting 9th as well on the order, as like a second leadoff guy. There'll be many times where Merced gets on, Walls gets on, and then it's just up to Crawford and everybody who hits behind him to just drive in these speed demons on the bases who just get on base all the time. And if one of them struggles, like say Walls might be struggling next year down the stretch and Merced is hot, I might flip them around and have Walls 9 and Merced leadoff. Lane Thomas ended up not really helping us too much this season. Picked him up at the deadline from the Nationals. Definitely not going to be re-signing him, but he did have a couple decent moments here for us down the stretch. Brian Anderson, incredible at the bat this season at 904 OPS, 21 home runs, 20 doubles, one of 3 different players on our team who had a 400-plus OBP. That's him, J.P. Crawford, and Taylor Walls, all 3 of those guys with an OBP above 400, all while playing in elite right field for Anderson. Love to see it from this guy. Ellie De La Cruz, like I said, had an awful start to the season here in 2025. Went down to AAA, came back up, and he got his OPS all the way back up to 742 here in the big leagues. So definitely not a bad season for him at all. Unfortunately, he's never going to have the pop that he has in real life in this game, but still an extremely solid player for us at the third base position. Luis Arraez, yet another player who we traded for who just really didn't help out. We traded for him early on in the season to try to spark the offense, and the offense definitely did spark a little bit, but he had nothing to do with that. He was very bad for us this season. Nothing more to say about him. He will not be back. Zach McKinstry, very good first half, slumped hardcore in the second half. Overall, solid for a utility guy, though. Austin Hendrick started the season in the big leagues, wasn't very good, went back down to AAA, called up in September, actually played quite a bit, and was solid in September. OPS finished at 752, 11 home runs, 13 stolen bases. He will definitely be up in the big leagues next season full time, so I'm excited to see how that goes with him. Cooper Hummel, backup catcher, we claimed him off waivers from the D-backs at the start of the season. He was fine. I mean, he's a backup catcher. You don't really expect too much from guys like that. Jonathan India, just awful. I mean, just totally awful. Went to AAA, came back, immediately got hurt. He's going to be shopped around in the offseason to see what we could get for him. Joe Adell, another guy who we are also going to look to deal in this upcoming offseason. He was awful in the big leagues, awful in AAA. He just needs a change of scenery again in his career, so he's not going to be on our team next year. Alex Call didn't really help too much. Probably won't be back next year just because he's replaceable. He's a depth outfielder. He's already 30 years old. No point in bringing him back. And then there's Nolan Jones, who of course is another player that we will be shopping this offseason. The Quad A player himself. Ratings show that he should be a stud. Just for whatever reason is not that when he comes up to the big leagues for us. We're just going to get rid of him and get something for him this offseason. While Spencer Brickhouse, who we picked up from the D-backs in a trade at the deadline, was okay in the big leagues. Daddy's a long-term option for us at first base or DH, but he is definitely still a part of our system here. Same with Ken Suzuki, except he's not an option at first base and only at DH. And then Jay Allen did the whole bigs to AAA, back to the big things as well, except he had another step in there because he went down to AAA, was awful in AAA, and went back down to AA just so his ratings didn't totally tank. And that's when he came back up straight from AA to the bigs. It's looking like Jay Allen's probably going to be our fourth outfielder next season. And, I mean, that's fine. It's just, I kind of figured that Jay Allen would be the one starting in center field for us at this point, and Merced would be the fourth outfielder, but it basically is flipped because Merced's been actually good, and Allen hasn't really proven anything. So flip things over to the pitching side of things, and there is Tyler Mahle, who had an absolutely fantastic rebound season. That is the Tyler Mahle that we know and love. He is an expiring contract, though, probably won't be back, but still very, very good season for Tyler Mahle. Tony Gonsolin, another very good starter for us, 2.59 ERA, 3.60 FIP, 3.5 WAR. He has one more year of team control, so he will be back next season. Hunter Green, also very good, 3 WAR. Misleading ERA of 4.65, but a 3.73 FIP, 10K per 9 is the highest among starters on our roster. Nick Lodolo as well, solid year, got extended around the deadline too. Things are looking good for the lanky lefty. Ryan Weathers split the year between the rotation and the bullpen. He was bad in the rotation while good in the bullpen. Gave up the home run that cost the season, unfortunately, to the Phillies, but not that it really means anything. It just kind of, he gave up a home run. It was bad time, bad spot, bad time. Definitely came into a game that probably shouldn't have been at that point because Gonsolin got hurt, but still, you know, he did give up the home run, but I mean, it's not like I'm writing him off because, oh my God, he can't pitch in the clutch or whatever because I'm not, you know, a 7 IQ baseball fan. And then there is Stuart Bradshaw. Big Stu, the lefty, 101.1 innings pitched in the big leagues this season, a 3.55 ERA and a 4.41 FIP. Overall, very solid numbers. I will absolutely take numbers like that for his first stint in the big leagues, especially since basically everybody else who has come up as a pitcher for us has just been a total zero, unplayable type of pitcher. One of those guys has been Chase Petty. I wouldn't say he's been unplayable, but I also wouldn't say he's been good either. What I would say is that he got a decent amount of experience in the bullpen this season, so hopefully next year he's able to put together better numbers for us. While DeAndre Foster, I would 100% say he was good, fantastic even. A 2.53 ERA, a 3.09 FIP, 9 K per 9, 1 walk per 9. That's a great ratio there. He was absolutely our best reliever and ended up sliding very well into that closer role for us. Well, Lucas Sims had a pretty Lucas Sims style season, struck out a lot of guys, wasn't great overall though. TJ Antone totally stopped striking out guys, had a good ERA and a meh FIP. And then Logan Allen, he was in the pen for a bit for us this season, had like 13 or so scoreless innings, and then he came into the game against the Washington Nationals game and got rocked around a bit, and then just from there on out, he decided to forget how to pitch, and he went back down to AAA after getting beat up in like multiple outings in the big leagues, went down to AAA, and he wasn't even good down there either, so kind of in a weird spot with him. Ron Marinaccio, the Toms River North man, wasn't that great in 19.1 innings pitched, but 11 K per 9 is definitely good to see. Lots of team control, solid ratings. Definitely going to be good to keep around in the organization. Then we've got Brennan Williamson, and you may be seeing his 13 2/3 innings pitched and say, he pitched like 2 games. You sent him down after 2 games? Those innings pitched were over like 5 or 6 starts, I'm pretty sure. So he sucked in those starts, went back down to AAA, and you would think that, hey, maybe if we need a lefty at some point in the season, he comes up, pitches in the pen or something like that, but he just never came back up because when he went back down to AAA, he wasn't even good down there either, just like Logan Allen, so I never really felt the need to bring him back. Also, a very weird portion with him right now where he's, not really somebody I'm looking at to be a rotation guy, but also not really somebody I want to totally give up on either. While Jarrett Ross was very good in the bullpen for us this season, pitched in some big spots down the stretch, got out of some jams, definitely liked what I saw from him. Landon Marceau, not as good as Ross, but still quite solid in the bullpen, I would say. Alex Reyes decided to completely stop striking guys out, and that's basically the one thing he does well, so he was totally useless this season. Seth Elledge struck out a ton of guys, also walked a ton and gave up a ton of hits, so he wasn't that great. I would say that him and Reyes are probably not going to be back next season. So now taking a look around the league at the league leaders here, starting things off on the national side of things, the batting average leader was J.P. Crawford. Hit .324 this season, which led the National League. The hits leader was Alec Boehm of the Philadelphia Phillies. The stolen base leader was Adrian Merced, who had 47 swiped bags, and then a bunch of other Reds players were in the top 10 as well. Home run leader was Miguel Sano, tied with Pete Alonso. They both hit 44, and then Rafi Devers also hit 40, or they both hit 45. Rafi Devers hit 44. The OBP leader was J.P. Crawford, and Taylor Walls ended up getting third, and somehow Brian Anderson didn't qualify. I guess he didn't get enough ABs or something. While the OPS leader ended up being Fernando Tatis as the only player who had a 4-digit OPS, but J.P. Crawford behind him in second place, and J.P. Crawford did indeed actually have the highest WAR in the National League with a 9.6. Flipping things over to the pitching side of things, Corey Knebel gets 50 saves for the Phillies this season. His 50th was actually against us in game 164. The ERA leader, Tony Gonsolin, with a 2.59. The innings pitched leader, Walker Buehler of the Dodgers. The strikeout leader was Shohei Ohtani of the Chicago Cubs. And then the WAR leader on the pitching side of things was Walker Buehler with a 5.2 WAR. Move over to the American League side of things. Their batting title leader was Vladimir Guerrero Jr., hit .319 for the Jays. The hits leader was also Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 198 hits. The doubles leader was Isaiah Kiner-Falefa of the White Sox, had 50 doubles this season. The stolen base leader, former Red himself, Jonathan Villar, picked up 42 swiped bags with the Red Sox. The home run leader was Jared Walsh of the Angels, hit 48 bombs this year. The OPS leader is Austin Meadows of the Minnesota Twins with a 9.94. And then the WAR leader was Mike Trout with an 8.4 for the Angels, of course. While on the pitching side of things, you had the save leader was Jordan Romano of the Blue Jays with 57. The ERA leader was Jose Urquidy of the Astros with a 2.42. The innings pitched leader was Jose Barrios of the Blue Jays with 229 innings. The strikeout leader was Alek Manoah of the Blue Jays with 225. And then the WAR leader was Kermit the Frog of the New York Yankees with a 5.4 WAR. Taking a look at the award winners now in the 2025 campaign, the MVP in the National League side of things was Walker Buehler. Also, of course, won the Cy Young, so he gets both awards. The batting title was our own J.P. Crawford. The reliever of the year went to Camilo Doval of the San Francisco Giants, while the rookie of the year went to Mark Vientos of the New York Mets. The Gold Glove first baseman was Matt Olson. He wins another one for the Braves. The Gold Glove shortstop was Nico Horner of the Cubs. Taylor Walls does not even get top 3 in that award. The center fielder is Harrison Bader. He gets another one with the Phillies. And then the Silver Slugger at catcher was Will Smith, who gets another Silver Slugger at that position. And then the Silver Slugger at shortstop is J.P. Crawford of our Reds, because he is listed as a shortstop, because I don't want to list him at second base, because then he regresses, because guys are way bumped in their overall when they go to second base, and just one of the 60,000 different things that you have to constantly be working around and trying to not mess up things with the MLB The Show franchise, because they're too busy putting out 17,000 cards a day for Diamond Dynasty. And now you may be wondering where the American League Award winners are, and I totally forgot to record them somehow. I must have been recording this while distracted or something, and I just totally skipped over the American League Award winners, and I don't know what else to say. I just skipped over it. I don't have any way to go back and look at it, because I recorded this weeks ago, and I just forgot to record it, so I'm assuming it's all very predictable, because it's always like, oh, who hit the most home runs? That's the MVP guy. Who hit the, it's very all predictable, but I just forgot to record the American League. So now if we take a look at the postseason bracket, as you can see, the San Francisco Giants win the World Series in 6 games over the Toronto Blue Jays. San Francisco goes all the way from the wild card game, and they win it. The American League postseason MVP was Teoscar Hernandez of the Blue Jays. The National League MVP, or the National League postseason MVP, was Eugenio Suarez. And then the World Series MVP was Joey Bart of the Giants. No chance he'd do that in my universe. Ryan Hacker supremacy. Now it's time to take a look at who hung him up this offseason. The retirements, starting things out, Jose Abreu had 2 years in free agency and then just called it quits. Evan Longoria, same deal, 2 years in free agency and he hung up the cleats. Chris Sale, 3 pretty not great years in Boston here to close out his career, while Max Scherzer was good in the pan in 2024 and then a free agent in 2025, so he is also retiring. And the only player who made the Hall of Fame this season was Max Scherzer himself, so Mad Max is now in the Hall of Fame. And now it is actually time to jump into the offseason here. So if we take a look at what our budget looks like, this is before we do any re-signs, before we do any arbitration, obviously before we go into free agency, so Crawford has got like 3 years left at $17.5 million per, only $44 million total on the payroll at the moment, so we do have a pretty decent amount of coin to spend here in the offseason. So let's just hop straight into it. As far as the guys that we did not bring back, the notable ones this season, because I'm not going to go through every single player that we decided not to bring back in the organization, but the notable ones are basically all these guys on the screen. Tyler Mahle is the one guy that we did tender a qualifying offer to. He declined it, and we will not be pursuing him in the offseason, so he will be getting us an extra draft pick as a compensation pick in this upcoming draft in the 2026 season. Lucas Sims is a guy we will not be bringing back. He's a veteran reliever, not that great in general. We can definitely do better than him in our bullpen. TJ Antone, he was fine. We're just kind of moving on from him. Zach McKinstry was also fine as a utility bat. Didn't feel like he was good enough to bring back, though. And then Evan White does have some solid power and discipline ratings. Fits in with our defense-first approach here, especially with, he's a Gold Glove level first baseman, essentially. But also, I do want to make a big splash at first base in the offseason this year, so Evan White could play first base for us, but he's, not really somebody I'm too interested in signing to play at first base. Also, not really worth it at his price. He's coming off that deal that he signed with the Mariners, so he, wants basically that same amount of money. And he's done nothing in the big leagues to prove that he deserves any sort of that type of money, so we're just not going to bring him back, and instead we're going to dip into free agency for our first base spot this year. But before we do that, we have to take a look at the staff, because we had quite a few openings on our staff this season at hitting coach, first base coach, third base coach, and farm director. The only returning members of our staff is our manager, Mike Matheny, and our pitching coach, Justin Romero. So the new hitting coach is Felipe Pinto, while the new first base coach is former Red Sox manager Alex Cora. The third base coach is Adolfo Ibarra, and then our farm director is Matt Blake. So like I said, the main plan here in this offseason is to make a big splash at first base. We have plenty of speed, contact, and defense on the team. I just feel like we need a true power bat in the order, middle of the order guy who can drive in our speed guys and just help out with the offense a bit. Just give us some more oomph to the lineup so we're not running guys like Anderson and Stevenson in that cleanup and 3-hole every single day out. One of them will still be in the 3-hole, but we don't have to worry about those guys who only have like middling power to be like the power guy on the order in the cleanup spot. Aside from that, though, not really too much in the plans goes for free agency. Maybe a bench bat or two, maybe a reliever or two. Gonna run a young guy out at the 5th starter spot this season. Somebody like Chase Petty or Freddie Jones or Jarrett Ross, somebody like that. The 1 to 4 of Green, Gonsolin, Lodolo, and Bradshaw I think is pretty solid, but we're just gonna be, giving a young guy a shot at that 5th spot, and hopefully he's able to do well. And then say we get to the trade deadline and he's not doing well, we could always improve by picking up a rental starter or something for the rest of the season. So our big splash in free agency this season goes by the name of Lamont Wade Jr. He is going to be our Jock Peterson type bat, if you will. Signed him for 2 years, $32.1 million. That's $16 million per. We will be getting him for his ages 32 and age 33 season. The guy consistently hits like 30 home runs, walks a ton too for the Giants. Extremely, extremely good bat against right-handed pitching. 86 contact, 98 power, 82 plate discipline, 99 clutch. He is the perfect guy to hit in that 4 spot for us. He can even play a decent outfield, to be honest, but he will be starting at first base for us. And he has gotten a pretty big boost to his contact and power versus left-handed pitching this season, but even with the boost, it's still only 51 and 48 respectively, so we are going to platoon somebody with him at first base. So we need a first baseman who can play against left-handed pitching. So I'm taking a look around our organization. We've got Tyler Stevenson, who can play first base, has 98 contact against left-handed pitching. Unfortunately, Joe Mack, who's probably going to be our backup catcher this season, can't really hit against left-handed pitching. So it's not like we can play Stevenson at first base and have Mack just catch against lefties. If we're going to do that, we're going to have to go out and sign a catcher to play in those spots. And there just so happened to be one sitting in free agency, and that was Tom Murphy. We went and offered him a 1-year, $9 million offer. Very solid power bat against left-handed pitching, good defensively as well. I love what the Mariners have going in real life with their 2 goatee catchers with him and Cal Raleigh. But Murphy in this universe has put up good numbers in back-to-back seasons with the Atlanta Braves. Unfortunately, we were not able to get him, as he does sign with the Philadelphia Phillies on a 2-year deal. So the Tom Murphy and Stevenson platoon there, split at catcher, not really going to work out. So we move on to plan B, which is Connor Joe. Stevenson will still play catcher against both sides, Mack will be his backup, and then Connor Joe plays first base against left-handed pitching. 1 year, $2.5 million, significantly cheaper than Murphy. Has been quite solid for the Rockies, hits lefties very well, he's got 82 contact, can play third base and corner outfield as well. Unfortunately, he signs with the San Francisco Giants instead for less money than we were offering him. So we move on to Plan C, and that is Yandy Diaz. 1 year, $3.5 million for him. Very good 2022 and 2023 with the Rays. Struggled in 2024 a bit, and then spent 2025 in AAA. Better against left-handed pitching, obviously. 70 contact, 85 vision, 93 discipline. Solid defender at first, third, second, and in the outfield as well. He is going to be our guy who plays first base against lefties, while Wade plays against righties. And because he has that positional versatility, he will also operate as a bench utility guy against right-handed pitching. And because Diaz was our third plan, essentially, our backup plan, I did want to go out and get another guy who we can stash in AAA and say Diaz is really struggling. We can put this guy into that first base against left-handed pitching role, and that is Jonathan Schoop. So he's going to be starting the year in AAA. He's an option if he's raking and Diaz is struggling. Everyday player for Detroit the past few seasons, struggled a lot as an everyday player for them, but he would only ever play against left-handed pitching for us, even in the minor leagues. Solid defender all over the infield, just a backup option for that platoon first base spot, and if he sucks, we can just DFA him and get rid of him and open up his spot in the minor leagues. You know, it doesn't really matter, just kind of a guy to have in the organization as a backup to our backup, essentially. But we also went out and added a player who is going to be a utility guy on our bench, basically taking over for Zach McKinstry, and that is Scott Kingery. Bring him in on a one-year deal. He has pretty much exclusively been in the minor leagues throughout this series, but he has been good enough in the minor leagues that he's actually boosted his potential up to a B. All around a decent bat now, average defender at many positions, 72 speed. Figured he'd be useful to have on our bench, so Scott Kingery is coming to the Reds this season. And then we went out and signed two different relievers, the first being Liam Hendriks. 1 year, $6.5 million for him. Veteran reliever. He's been an elite closer throughout this series. Obviously, the ratings will go down because he is 37 years old, but even if they go down, which they will, he is still going to be having good ratings even when they go down. But if he does struggle in that closer role, we can always bump him down to like a middle relief role and then put DeAndre Foster back in as the closer, because we have now two very solid back-end bullpen guys, and then we're adding a third one in Tyler Rogers. He was still out there very late into free agency, so I figured, what the heck, let's just give him an offer here. 1 year, $5.8 million for him. He's put up a 1.03 and a 1.77 ERA the past two seasons in a setup role with the Giants. Extremely good hit per 9, walk per 9, home run per 9, and clutch ratings. Why not bring in a submariner who has put up that comically good of numbers the past few seasons? So that is all what we did in free agency, but now let's take a look around the league to see some of the bigger signings that happened with other teams. And the first one we're going to highlight here is the Chicago Cubs, who were active yet again, strengthening their team. They pick up Will Smith to be their catcher. They still have Wilson Contreras, so now they have Contreras and Will Smith. They also pick up Peter Fairbanks to strengthen their bullpen, and they get Tyler Mahle. I somehow missed the recording on that too, but Tyler Mahle is a member of the Chicago Cubs for multiple seasons now, so we are going to be seeing a decent amount of him still in the series. And then the other Chicago team, the White Sox, picked up two big bats and one good pitcher here. The first bat being Yordan Alvarez from the Astros, now playing for the White Sox. And then they also pick up Brian Reynolds. So they've got just an absolutely stacked outfield. They got Brian Reynolds, they got Luis Robert, they got Aaron Judge, and they got Yordan Alvarez. I mean, their fourth outfielder is like a 92 overall. The White Sox, however, did indeed lose Dylan Cease to the Philadelphia Phillies, but this is no mustache Dylan Cease, so he's not as good. Tommy Edman also goes to the Philadelphia Phillies. Michael Kopech also leaves the White Sox. He goes to the Milwaukee Brewers, but the Brewers team continues to keep getting gutted as they lose Luis Urias to the New York Yankees. He joins his old teammate Willy Adames on the Bronx Bombers. The Yankees also pick up Zach Gallen, the South Jersey man, Jordan Romano, because they needed another Italian on their roster, and then Cal Quantrill all go to the New York Yankees, while Kyle Tucker is one of multiple players who have left the Astros this offseason. He signs in our division going to the St. Louis Cardinals. The Astros did add Ty France from their division, so he's now their first baseman. But Jose Urquidy, the American League's ERA leader this past season, leaves the Astros, and he's being signed by the Baltimore Orioles. And then the Orioles also go out and sign Gene Segura to a one-year deal. So is that going to be enough for them to compete? Probably not, but definitely a better team than they have had throughout this series. And then, honestly, the biggest surprise this entire offseason for me was Bo Bichette going to the Oakland A's on a super long, big deal. I mean, that's just crazy. He goes to Oakland while the other team on the Bay signed Raisel Iglesias to improve their bullpen, as well as last year's American League home run leader in Jared Walsh stays in California. And then the D-backs picked up a few guys. Kevin Biggio for the Blue Jays is now on the D-backs, as well as Austin Hayes from the Orioles signs a deal with them. And then they also get Mike Soroka from the Braves. Oscar Mercado gets signed by the Miami Marlins. He joins all the guys they signed last offseason. Sean Murphy is no longer a Cardinal. He is now on the Atlanta Braves. And then Austin Riley leaves the Braves and goes to the Minnesota Twins. He joins Austin Meadows there. And then Lucas Sims, our former closer, our former just crazy, never know what you're going to get from him reliever, stays in division and signs with the St. Louis Cardinals for like 5 years. Now taking a look at the Rule 5 draft, you can see these are the main guys that we left unprotected, and that's because we added Joe Mack, Trey Sweeney, Tyler Callahan, Dylan Coleman, and Dead Neil Nunez, all to the 40-man roster. And of those guys that we left unprotected, we did not lose any of them. We also did not select anybody in the Rule 5 draft this year, so I will call that a win. But we are not quite done with moves made here this offseason, as we have made 2 trades that will affect our Major League roster here. One of them, Jonathan India and Joe Adell, are being packaged in a deal and sent to the Cleveland Guardians in return for Amed Rosario and Zach Neal. We all know Jonathan India's deal. Guy is capable of being a great bat, just hasn't been that for us the past couple seasons, and he just doesn't really fit in with this team's plan. Not a good defender, just not really what we do here. He has 2 years left on his contract at about $5 million per, so he's going to go and play for Cleveland. And then Joe Adell needs a change of scenery. He will immediately be their best left fielder this year, plus 2 more years of team control left for him. And then we get Amed Rosario, who is a super utility shortstop guy, great defender, good contact versus lefties. He's been pretty bad for Cleveland, just like India has 2 years left on his deal. We're basically swapping underachieving players here with India and Rosario. They're both making a similar amount of money, Rosario a little bit more than India's making. While Keith Neal is just going to be a young reliever to have in our organization, throws hard, has a good walk per 9 rating. He'll probably be in like AA or AAA for us this season, and could eventually be in the big leagues for us. And then the second trade we made was packaging Nolan Jones and Peyton Battenfield to the Oakland A's in return for Robert Passan. Nolan Jones gets to go and play every day in the big leagues, play in a super low-pressure environment with Oakland, get his shot there, while Peyton Battenfield is just another arm that they could absolutely use, opens up a spot in the 40-man roster for us. And then Robert Passan is a decent little player, average bat. He got a plus 12 boost to his power versus lefties this past season. Good defender, has some speed to his game. Going to experiment with him all over the infield, maybe some outfield too. Will be starting the season in AAA for us, but he is a member of our 40-man roster, so he could absolutely end up in the big leagues at some point this season. I know in real life he used to be like one of the top prospects, but in this game, he's a C potential, and Oakland has Bichette now at shortstop, so he's blocked there. They have a ton of young, high-potential players around Passan's rating at both second base and third base as well. So he's just kind of blocked all over their team, and they'd rather play other guys rather than him. So we get this guy who they just kind of have sitting around their system, and they get Nolan Jones to maybe, hopefully for them, be a good player for them. And that is still not the last move that we made here this offseason. The last move that we made was we extended Hunter Green. Big-time arm, gets a big-time deal. 6 years, $146.7 million. That's $24.5 million per year. Still only 26 years old for us. I mean, what can you say? He's still only 26, and he's this good already. We want to keep this guy around for a long time. He's our ace, so we are doing that, giving him this 6-year deal. Hunter Green sticking around for a long time now. We do have a couple other guys who are on expiring contracts, but we're not extending them quite yet. Tony Gonsolin on the last year of his deal. If he puts up another season like he did in 2025, I would absolutely be open to bringing him back for like an extra 2-3 seasons, but I will have to see a second year of production. If he comes out this season, he's just like average or lays an egg, we're not going to be bringing him back. while Tyler Stevenson also is set to hit free agency next season. The thing about him, though, is I think that he's replaceable. Joe Mack will be his backup this season. Maybe Mack takes over against right-handed pitching next season, and then we sign a catcher to play against left-handed pitching. I mean, it's not like Tyler Stevenson's bat has been so good that we can't replace his bat. We can't live without his bat in lineup. It really all just comes down to how much he's asking for in the offseason. He's probably going to want a decent amount of money, though, as like a mid-80 overall catcher. We also have Brian Anderson, who's on an expiring contract, but I mean, we signed him to that 3-year deal with the intention of letting him walk at the end of those 3 years. You know, maybe if he puts up like another 900 OPS season for us, we think about it, but probably it's going to be more something where we let him walk, and then it opens up some other spots that we have in the corner outfield. Hopefully Hendrick breaks out this season. He solidifies one of those spots, and then we have another spot open for somebody else, maybe a young guy. But as far as what this Season 5 2026 Cincinnati Reds roster looks like, the 26-man roster on opening day, I think we have a very good squad this year. I am fully expecting this Reds team to make the playoffs here. We've come close the past 2 seasons. I feel like we would have made it in 2024 if we didn't have that horrible month of August. And I also feel like, I mean, if we just didn't have the bad month of April or whatever it was in last season, I feel like we would have easily made the playoffs. So we are just right there to making it, and I feel like adding Wade and just having some guys continue to be good, continue to improve, I mean, I feel like we should make the playoffs this year. But anyways, taking a look at what we have set for our team right now, the rotation 1 to 5 is going to be Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Tony Gonsolin, and Stuart Bradshaw. And then the 5th guy is Chase Petty. We're giving him the shot in the rotation instead of somebody else right now. Basically just the order we have them in, we're just splitting it up so it's like righty, lefty, rather than having like back-to-back lefties, because I do think Gonsolin's our number 2, but Lodolo, we're putting him as the number 2 because so we have the righty-lefty thing going. While the bullpen, back end of it is Liam Hendricks, DeAndre Foster, and Tyler Rogers. While Ryan Weathers is back, Ron Marinaccio, Dylan Coleman, and Brandon Williamson are the other guys in the pen. Williamson is out of options. Figured I might as well just give him a shot as a second lefty in the pen rather than trying to waive him and pass him through waivers. Well, if we take a look at the bat side of things, the lineup against right-handed pitching is Walls at shortstop, Crawford at second, Anderson in right, Lamont Wade at first, Tyler Stevenson catching, Hendrick in left, De La Cruz at third, Fagan at DH, center field is Merced, and then against lefties it's pretty similar, except a couple changes. It's Walls, Crawford, Stevenson in the 3-hole, Anderson cleanup, De La Cruz, Fagan, Yandy Diaz at first, Rosario in left field, and Merced in center. While the bench for us is Joe Mack, who is the backup catcher, Jay Allen, who is the 4th outfielder, Scott Kingery is the utility guy against both sides, Rosario is a utility guy against right-handed pitching, and platoon left field against lefties, and then Yandy Diaz is utility against right-handed pitching, and then platoon against lefties at first base. As far as some of the number changes on this year's team, starting from lowest to highest, Lamont Wade is going to be wearing number 6 for us. You may be asking yourself, why number 6? That is because that's what he wore at Maryland. So we're just giving him his old college number. Number 7 goes to Rosario. Number 16 goes to Liam Hendricks. That's what he wore with one of his stints in Oakland. Yandy Diaz gets number 23. Scott Kingery takes McKinstry's spot on the roster and his number, wears number 28 this season. Joe Mack is going to be wearing number 32. Dylan Coleman gets number 56, and then Tyler Rogers will get his usual number 71. Now, I know I said the last move of the offseason was extending Hunter Green, but we did actually make a move here right as opening day came around, as we did place a waiver claim on Andrew Painter, who the Philadelphia Phillies waived. They're just giving up on him. A potential 22-year-old right-handed pitching. Pitched 21 big league games for them. Wasn't good, and they're just kind of giving up on him because he's out of options, and they're trying to pass him through waivers. So I said, screw it, we're going to claim him. We're multiple seasons into this thing now. It's going to be 2026. Let's get wild. So we are going to see if our claim goes through on Painter, and if he can join this 2026 Cincinnati Reds ball club. So that is going to wrap things up here for this off-season edition of the Reds franchise. You also may notice that some of our players who are the show-generated players, guys like Johnny Fagan, guys like Stuart Bradshaw, Adrian Merced, guys who are not real players and instead were people we drafted and were created by MLB The Show in one of their drafts. I got tired of looking at the same generic face 6, generic face 4, so I decided to actually make these guys look like real people and kind of just, make them look different from one another. So you may notice in game that wow, Johnny Fagan suddenly has a different face. That's why. But like I said, that will wrap things up. Opening day is going to be against the Milwaukee Brewers, Hunter Green, taking on Shane Bieber. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I am saying, I'm gonna need the people who schedule motorsports events to stop scheduling NASCAR and IndyCar on the same day at the same time.